Hello humans, hello humans. Another day, another trip, another rainstorm. It's the 14th, it's Pi Day. And we're heading into town in the noisy car. Let me see if I can get that dialed down a bit. There we go. Okay. Anyways, major storm here. I'm driving through hail and 33 degrees on the beach. Cold as hell at my house. There we go. Okay, so we had our shift into the active phase of things here recently, bringing up the issue of the wonky financial system, the powers that be trying to maneuver us into the digital currency crapola. You know, that shit just is not going to work, right? It requires some stuff that we don't have infrastructure-wise here in North America. And so the digital currency, like, cannot function. They've tried some of the tests here, and the tests work out just fine in their test bed, from what I'm told. And it doesn't function so well in the real world, right? You need a huge infrastructure. They need to basically convert over all of the ATMs and all of the card processing machines to deal with the digital currency. And the complexities arise not because of the currency itself, although there is that, but the complexities arise because in order for this to function, they have to establish for sure authenticated ID, right? So they've got to know who the hell you are in order for this to function. And they've got to know absolutely, and it's got to be invariant. And so any hiccup in the system and things start getting really seriously wonky pretty quick. And to roll it out for large population bases so far has not happened smoothly or effectively, and all the trials have failed. The digital currency, as I say, has some real issues, especially relative to identity globally, right? And so population base, all of this kind of stuff makes a big difference. How large your population is that you're rolling it out to, and how cooperative they are likely to be. We're not having much in the way of cooperation here. In the US, people are very much against this, and there's a rising tide of antipathy for the digital currency and for the people that bring it up as some kind of a potential solution for the problems. So we'll see how far they push it, but they couldn't roll it out now. If all the banks failed tomorrow, they can't roll out digital currency for the Fed, a centralized digital currency. It just isn't going to happen. They don't have the infrastructure, they don't have the people, they don't have the mechanics in terms of the software in place and these sorts of things. So we're in kind of a interesting period of time. In my way of thinking, they would need maybe another 3 years in to make it real solid in terms of engineering on the thing, development of the software. They have not had real world tests on this, okay? So the test beds for the central bank's digital currency are all isolated, and they've not faced real world contention in the form of people trying to hack it and this sort of thing. So who knows what's going to happen there? Now, my way of thinking with the digital currency, that we could have the prankster kind of hackers that would hack in and say, give everybody, you know, $1 billion globally, right? So that the whole population, everybody has $1 billion. That breaks the system right there. Or There's the other kind of hacker that you'll just never know about, where he hacks into the system and gives himself $1 million or $1 billion and then backs out, right? So that you just don't know it's occurred. There's no sign of the hack at all. And in my estimation of the federal government and the talent and so forth that they have, they'll never find that latter case, right? It just won't happen. They'll maybe be able to catch some of the issues with the former, where they give everybody $1 billion. They would know that their system is broken, but would they be able to catch the guy that did it or any of that? I doubt it, seriously. So anyway, though, I don't expect that will occur. What I do expect to occur is some level of breakdown on the system in terms of not only the banking and the banks failing and so on, but also breakdowns in ATM deliveries and the ability to process cards and this sort of thing. And it'll be spotty, irregular, probably fairly consistently appearing, and annoying to everybody as these systems break down. So we'll find pretty soon here, as the banks start collapsing, that EBT cards simply won't function, because some of the banks are providing the back-end processing for some of the states for some of this federal program. And because it's all this convoluted and stuff, if the feds make the wrong move, they will break the system further down the chain. And we get into this compounding errors situation relative to the software. You can do that fairly easily, right? That if you have a software that is reliant on other software in the form of what are known as dynamic link libraries, where the software is compiled, you don't own it as the developer, you just have the permission to call it and extract certain things from it, but you're not really sure how it works under the hood. You just take for granted that the value it provides you is valid. That's where it breaks down. So I call it DLL in one of my routines, one of my software routines, that goes out and has to touch something that the federal government made, and they made a change, and for whatever reason, I'm not aware of the change they made, or it's not pertinent to my knowledge. They don't know I'm using their DLL, and so I'm not notified, but that change is significant enough to affect how I use that data, and I should have known, and that's when we start getting this compounding errors issue, right? And nobody can figure it out. It's a tricky problem in debugging, and those are very specialized skills. I just need to make a note here that I've recently had problems with my software-enabled vehicle, and it's now in the shop. It's been there a week or more. They said they'd fixed it. They brought it back, and it was total crap, and it took me 2.5 hours to get home that day. It must have died 30 or 40 times, kicked me out of gear 30 or 40 times. The software was clearly glitching around some level of stuff. And so anyway, it's they're having to debug it. It's a physical problem. We know that. There's been degradation in the circuit board and the wiring. Okay, so actual physical degradation that they can visually see. So maybe it needs a new wiring harness. I don't know what the issue is, but the issue for me is that now that we've got software involved, you need some level of serious debugging skills to know how to go about finding where these errors are if there were not any visible signs of damage. So if they had not been able to, they just happened to open this one cover on a circuit board, had a look, and they could see visible damage on the board. Not a good thing, but at least it points out where there is some problems. So the software was trying to run through a circuit board in some part of its processing. I don't know what part that was, but it had at some point to process information for transmission or something. So maybe it was transmission, maybe it was fuel flow. I don't know what this board controlled, but it had damage in it. And so every time it would be accessed, the circuits would probably have crosstalk. We'd probably have some level of malfunction in that board itself. And there you go. The car would die, etc., etc. So the point being that we're now in a complex system world, and the abilities of the people that are now functioning as our federal government and the people that they're going to hire, having been tainted by all of this equity, diversion, inclusion shit, we've got what they call diversity hires, right? And so these people are not capable of doing the work. And that's where we're at now. So we're going to run into this situation where they're going to try and roll out this massive fix for our social order as the social order plunges into a level of chaos relative to the financial system. And then they're going to have all these troubles, and then they're going to run into the complex systems debugging problems that they don't have the talent to fix, and that's going to compound it because the talent to fix this is part of the complex system itself, and they don't recognize that. So when they most government I've worked for, and I've worked for on and off for all different kinds of government, federal, state, local, whatever. I was a subcontractor, right? I'd come on in and do stuff for them, collect my pay and leave, having done the job I was paid to do. But having worked for them, I understand that they don't think appropriately about these issues. And so I worked with a telephony company that was all hot on working on what they called convergence, the point where computers would be built into phones. And so this was before we had anything like a smartphone. And I worked on software that aided the training for people that would have to do the diagnoses and fix the software for smartphones. And we were doing that in '85. And so smartphones didn't roll out for another 6 years in a serious way. And so we were working on things to address personnel issues in the telephony industry 6 years before the manifestation, because the telephony industry planned ahead. They knew what they had to do. They knew the resources they were dealing with, yada, yada, yada. And so they took an adult approach about it. We do not see that now with the federal government. They've had really abysmal problems, or abysmal success rates, and lots of problems hiring talent and retaining talent to do this kind of stuff. And it's getting worse for them all the time. And there's no concerted effort to backstop their digital system, their digital currency. There's no concerted effort to set up an organization to be responsible or any of that. This is like seriously half-assed. So it's going to fail. It's going to fail probably pretty spectacularly. I don't think the rollout will get much beyond the launch, right? So it'll be a launch party, and then the giant new phone, whatever kind of thing being launched, dies as soon as the fireworks are done, and the party is at that point officially over. So this is the kind of world we're getting into. I suspect that we've got a couple of months before they really start trying to ramp up the digital currency shit. We're going to have to get a lot more severely strained before they try rolling that out, because they know there's so much opposition to it and it's building. At least they are aware of that. They're aware of the pushback they're getting on Twitter. They're aware of the pushback they're getting on all of the social media, and also within a lot of the businesses. So, interesting time ahead. This will go concurrent with our financial troubles that are actually working through the system now that the system itself is dying. And it's dying because of basically a mathematical certainty relative to the money, the currency, not real money, but relative to the currency. There's a mathematical certainty now that they've basically, if you wanted to think about it this way, they've printed too much already for us to withdraw any and make the system stable. The only thing they can do at this stage is to keep on printing in order that we might still have movement and everything not seize up. That's what they're desperately afraid of, is the seize up stage, right? Where everybody would go to the bank and there wouldn't be any functioning, you couldn't get anything out of an ATM, the charge machines won't work, your cards won't work, and then basically everybody's milling around saying, okay, we got to do something, let's go beat the shit out of the fuckers in charge, throw them out the door, and make Bob over there in charge. He's done something like this before, maybe he can get us all back up and running. And we're going to come to that we're going to come to that stage, you know, that okay, everybody go find Bob, you know, Bob knows how to do this shit, haul him up here and we'll make him governor for a while until we get this shit straightened out. It's going to be very difficult, as I was saying in the video the other day. My estimation for the really, really, really hard part on like regular humans is that it's going to be July onward. It'll be a brutal winter because we'll still be dealing with all the shit that we're going to be that's going to be piled up on us in summer. And we, in my opinion, we need to do what we can now to adjust our attitude to what we're going to be facing, and to take what steps we may now in order that we would reduce the problems and so forth then. So, you know, there's not a whole lot we can do about some of this stuff. We're in a very fragile, brittle, high-tech world. The brittleness comes from mismanagement. The mismanagement is deliberate because we got these mother weffers that want to change the name and rule over the remainder of humanity, about 500 or 600 millions. That's their goal. That's what they're trying to do. They're co-opting people and all of this kind of stuff, and so their plan is moving. But the fact that it won't succeed is sort of like not pertinent at the moment, because they're going to continue doing it anyway. But this is where we're at, is the breakdown of their system. Once we get their system totally collapsed out of our faces, then we can start rebuilding. But then at that point, we've got a ton of decisions. We've got a lot of people that are going to be you know, pushing their individual agendas and stuff. And in my opinion, we've got to be very careful that we don't bring over any of this weaponized Munchausen's by proxy from the mother weffers. So there is no, there's climate damage that we're experiencing. There are always extreme storms and stuff. There is no climate crisis. The planet is not going to. It actually needs us. If you read Vernansky, you understand. Read Biosphere, you'll understand how important humans are to the functioning of the planet and what would be here if we were not here. And then we're in a situation here where the potential for some of this weaponized Munchausen's to come over is pretty solid. So there will be people that will be maintaining until they die that trans is like a legit thing and not simply weaponized Munchausen's by proxy, distorting natural body dysphoria to create a mental illness. So it is a created, socially induced mental illness. That's why I got kicked off Twitter. Twitter sent me a thing, by the way. I'm back on now. And Twitter sent me a letter of apology, and it was like kind of cool. So, you know, it's like I knew the people were after me. There was no point in me deleting this tweet because the Antifa and the trans community guys are out there bitching and moaning about me now. And they're going to keep doing it to Twitter, so Twitter either has to accept them as a dominant force and close my account out, or they've got to just, you know, push them off and say, nah, you guys are full of shit. And I think they're taking that latter approach, because the complaint against me was dismissed. It was apparently a hint in the email, bogus, and Twitter recognizes that, and they may have taken some form of action against the person that did that. They don't like handling spurious attacks between people that are using the system to to screw somebody. Twitter is kind of cool in the sense that they don't care what kind of shit you do online, and you can bitch and moan about somebody as long as you're not shading into violence, right? That's what I was accused of, was being violent. They filed this kind of a particular block against me for violence, and what the violent language I used, specifically the language in the tweet, was that trans is an official mental illness, and here's the code. Right, here's the ICD-10 code. So I was just saying facts, right? No violence, no words or anything. And Twitter gets a little bit upset when you misreport for a hit on somebody. It's kind of like Twitter swatting in a sense. Anyway, though, so I'm back online. We'll see how long that lasts. They've already apparently mounted a couple of other complaints against me already today, and life goes on. You know, shit continues to roll downhill. And here we are at the bottom of that gravity well, so it's coming all down to us. But really, I think that this is the good year. This is the year of the change. This is the horrible, terrible year. In many regards, next year will be more difficult, but in my opinion, it won't be harsher, because we will be, even though the conditions will not have yet been corrected, we will be in the process of doing things to do that correction, and thus progress would be seen at some point as we go forward in 2024. I actually think that, from my viewpoint, we'll see some progress in the form of milestones that I'm expecting pop up this year, and then that will give me more confidence that the other projections that are tied to them in the set theoretic mathematics approach that my predictive linguistics uses are valid. Okay, so each milestone along the way gives you further confidence, and so it's like with each and every obstacle I overcome, I become stronger and better. Therefore, let me have another challenge, let me have another obstacle, that I shall become even more strong, even more successful, etc., 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 right? That's where we're at. You got to get your attitude adjusted, because you're going to be faced with these challenges, whether you like it or not. So I could pull take an attitude, right? I could be a Greta Thunberg and say, "How dare you steal my retirement," right? But I don't accept that universe should provide me with any given damn thing, right? I'm not. So that sense of entitlement that you get out of these kids is just really bizarre, in my opinion. The universe is about to kick it out of them in this Great Depression that we're going to be in. Because it'll be 20 years around the planet trying to overcome all of the shit the mother weffers have put in for these last couple of hundred years. We've got a lot of damage to undo, and a lot of that damage has to be found. It has to be discovered and hunted up and exposed to people so that we can get beyond it. It's a terrible time where you have to say, okay, I'm at war, but I'm going to have spies to find out who the fuck I'm at war with, right? Because it's all so hidden. And then, somewhere in this late summer, I suspect we're going to get really seriously into the disclosure and the UFO shit. That was just the way it laid out in the Alta reports. There were really significant set markers that indicated that the timing on the exposure for the space aliens and the bringing out of all of this relative to our overlords here in terms of governments, the clues that we had within the data pointed to late August, early September. And that would be fitting with where we're at now relative to what's going on within the financial system, because they'll want to do it for a number of reasons, the whole space alien things. But we have to remember that there will be a lot of pressure for them not to do it, because that's their last shot, that's their last gasp. After that, then what, right? What can you fear after they've unleashed the space aliens on you and you've met that challenge and you're fine? There'd be a lot of people that are going to be freaked out by them, just the way that we've got people that are paid with Munchausen by proxy promoters around climate, right? So you got a whole climate industry now, and these people have been trained only to see climate crisis. They don't see normal climate, weather, any of that. All they can see is that what they've been told and trained, that, you know, the world is doomed, humanity is doomed, we're all going to die in the next 10 years, yada, 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 yada. And there we go. We're back into the old shit. We've been going through that since all of my life. So in the 50s, they were saying that everybody would be dead in the 60s. And, you know, they gave a couple of different reasons. And then something happened in the 50s, right? So something happened in 1956, maybe it was 55, but probably 56, that changed the world, and we have yet to find out what that was. But the world changed dramatically over the course of 57 and 58 with this global geophysical year thing that they had going. And this was the Mother Weffers dealing with something that was so large they had to manipulate and motivate a vast amount of the governments on the planet to cooperate with them to do this. And then we went down to Antarctica in a serious way. So I'm very curious to find out what the fuck that was, and hopefully that'll come out here in the next few years. But the Munchausen's by proxy is strong. It's deep in the system. It's going to be a long time before we overcome that. This is why I continually, whenever I encounter it on Twitter, I'm just going to continually throw some memes up there saying, you know, this is the Munchausen's by proxy. Go get yourself checked out. Go see a psychiatrist. You're pimping for the WEF. That kind of thing. You know, give them pushback. And you can give them solid factual pushback and say, okay, dude, you know, if the world's going to end, why didn't it end in the 60s? Why didn't it end in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, right? You're just pushing the same fear porn. And you can call these guys out on it. A lot of them are paid for it, but it will start making an impression on the people that read their stuff, and it'll start lessening the social pressure that provides the dynamics for Munchausen's, for this weaponized Munchausen's, which is really evil stuff. But once we've gotten the populace trained and understanding in this, and then once we inculcate this into our school system, so that, you know, when you're 3 years or in your third grade, when you really start thinking about stuff, they start talking to you about this, then humanity can overcome this, and we won't be vulnerable anymore, and that'll be kind of cool. Plus, in my opinion, we're going to go back to way back in the past, pre-Tesla, start examining some of the things that the WEF has inserted in our science. And this will be done as a result of these space alien stuff that's going to be rolling out this summer. I think they're going to be so desperate they'll actually roll it out. I don't think they'll delay it another year. It's their last gasp. It's their, you know, hopefully save us kind of a ploy. So they're going to be reluctant to use it, because if it fails, then they know they're fucked. On the other hand, you start looking at the faces of these people, right? So Fauci, I've seen him recently. He was on TV the other day. He looks bad. That man is worried. You start looking at these people on Twitter, like Keith Olbermann. He looks worried. Okay, now I don't know what the fuck he's worried about. I mean, I know they're all paid and so on, but maybe he's personally involved in this. Bill Gates looks worried. All these people are now starting to really worry about the collective actions. So you have to understand that they were at the top of the heap, right? They never thought that Hillary would lose. They never thought Trump would win. They never thought anything would change. They never even considered that they might be at risk for any of the terrible, evil things they're doing. They were all like a gang. They're all pumping everybody up. They're working in this thing on a collective group kind of an issue. And so they end up with this group dynamic, this group think, which the group think was that we're in charge, we know everything, we've got everything, we can't lose. And so we'll do whatever the fuck we want. And so, well, universe said, nope, that ain't gonna happen. And here we are now. Anyway, so got to get some chores done here. We've got a lot to do. Banks are failing. I got to go and talk to the bank president and see if they've done any of this ESG shit or whatever the hell it is, whatever they call that, social investing on this bank I've got here. Anyway, it's going to be a strange time, guys. We will recover. It's going to be rough. So you need to do what you can do now and prepare yourself for how rough it will be. But like I say, we should see some positive signs appear even in the midst of the worst of it. And I suspect that the worst of it's probably going to hit us. We'll be feeling it July and August and September. But of course, it's going to really hit us in May, and then it's going to ripple on out. Anyway, take care. Tough times. Tough times make tough people, though. So that's good.